To politics now, in the first tiebreaker in cabinet confirmation history, Vice President Mike Pence casting the deciding vote in the Senate yesterday to confirm Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. Her support of U.S. tax dollars paying for private and religious school tuition has sparked controversy, to say the least. Joining us now, Congressman Todd Rokita, who sits on the House Education and Workforce Committee. Congressman, great to have you with us.
Hey, Melissa, Andrew, and Joe. Great to be here.
Good morning to you. You know, taking a look sort of at a more, 30,000-foot view at all of this and not just specifically at the DeVos hearings, are you getting concerned that things are growing a little bit more contentious on Capitol Hill and that will endanger the accomplishment of the Republican agenda, particularly marquee pieces of the agenda such as corporate tax reform?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's gone slower than it has historically, that's for sure. But, with the kind of president we have who's, one of action, with the energy that I'm seeing from my colleagues here on the House side, I think the Senate's, and from what I know about the senators, we're all marching ahead. And, yeah, there might be some delays. It might delay some of the budget work that we're doing. I'm vice chairman of the Budget Committee, so that's kind of my purview on all this. But there is no lack of commitment to getting it done. However, the Democrats want to delay. We are on a mission, and we're going to get this country back on track.
And I think few would question that notion that the president is a can-do, sort of a man of action. I mean, his flurry of activity within the first couple of weeks being in office is stunning. At the same time, action at what cost? I mean, on the travel ban specifically, the Homeland Security Secretary has already said that he should have delayed the rollout. I mean, are there regrets in terms of being so action-oriented that you're actually costing political capital for your party?
Well, I don't know if it's political capital. I think all this will pass. I mean, there were certainly some implementation hiccups, but the underlying premise of the pause and review strategy, which is something that the last administration was also for in terms of what they did in 2011 and in terms of actually identifying the 7 countries that President Trump actually went ahead and did the pause on. I think that is sound strategy. I think a sovereign nation has a right and a duty to keep its citizens safe, and that's all this was. I mean, by definition, it wasn't a Muslim ban. There are over 40-some Muslim countries. We're talking about 7 here. So this is targeted, it's tailored, and it's what needs to be done when you can't vet the people that are coming in because of lack of records and lack of understanding of where they've been and where they've traveled to and from. So this was a prudent measure. I'm glad he did it.
At the same time, you're seeing a president who is very conscious and conscientious about meeting with leaders of corporate America. He's billed as, a pro-business president. On the other hand, you have 127 tech executives fighting this travel ban. You have executives from 150 healthcare companies also fighting this ban. Doesn't that endanger that notion that he is pro-business when he is actually uniting the business community against an executive order that he signed?
No, I don't know. I can't speak for every one of these companies, but it seems to me, again, as one member of Congress, that there's a bit of an agenda here because President Obama did a very similar thing back in 2011. President Obama is the one who identified these 7 countries. So, and I didn't remember, I was here in 2011, and I don't remember the uproar. I didn't remember this list of
just
companies.
To put a fine point on it, and I think the distinction and the reason why we're talking about it today, and perhaps we didn't talk about it as much then, was because we weren't stopping people mid-flight effectively, midway in the process. It was a very different issue. Also, there wasn't the refugee issue. So there's sort of 2 things going on that do create a distinction as to why the upending of people's lives in a way that didn't exist then.
That could be, and if that's what the list of if that's the actual concern from these companies, not that there's an actual pause and review, but that the implementation has had some problems, then of course I have to agree. And the administration needs to make sure that the implementation goes smoothly. I used to run 4 government agencies in the state of Indiana, and implementation is everything. So I understand that part of it, but I'm not sure that that's what the concern of these companies is. I'm not sure why they're having the concern if they didn't have it in 2011.
Yeah. Congressman, it's Joe. Good morning. So in the parts of the country that historically did not vote for a Republican, they obviously voted for President Trump again. And they did so because they wanted jobs and they wanted economic growth. Just listening to you this morning and seeing what is going on over the last couple of weeks, it seems as though the conversation seems to be away from that. How committed House Republicans. How committed is the Trump administration to re-engaging that conversation? You have the State of the Union coming up, I believe, February 28th. I think people want to hear about jobs and economic growth, and we've lost that conversation.
Well, yeah, I don't. That may be a fair point from an optics standpoint, but I can tell you from inside this rotunda, inside the Capitol, it is all we are about. Starting with repealing and replacing Obamacare, which has a huge economic effect, and we're going to do that through reconciliation, which is a budgetary process that gets us around the 60-vote threshold. So we are all about focusing on that. On the heels of that will be a second reconciliation bullet, as I describe it, that will allow us to get to tax reform through the fiscal year 18 budget. So that is job one. We're on it. We're working on it. From a legislative perspective, you got to, and sometimes I think the president himself has to appreciate this too. It was designed to work slowly, right? So that's what we're working through now. But we are at full speed. You should see healthcare repeal and some replacement in the March timeframe, and then comprehensive tax reform on the heels of that, focusing on lowering tax rates for all businesses of any size.
So, Congressman, what is your most optimistic forecast for getting some sort of tax reform done?
Well,
I think full speed, full speed, full speed. What's the time frame?
Well, I'm still hopeful it's going to be this calendar year, maybe into next calendar year when you start seeing some more of it. But it's job one and two based on the reconciliation opportunities that we have in the fiscal year 17 and fiscal year 18 budget. So it has to be, coming in the next 12 calendar months.
And Congressman, two big tax issues that the market's focused on. One is a border adjustment tax or any kind of border tax, which could represent about $1 trillion of revenue. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I'll tell you what we're trying to work to do is get rid of the Made in America tax. So we're reducing and eliminating tax on exporting our goods. I can't believe we're doing that. And then in order to fund, so to speak, some of the tax cuts, taxing some of the things that come in as imports seems to be a reasonable way to do it.
So you are for the border adjustment tax, just to underscore that point.
I understand the concept of what we're trying to do, and I'm excited to be part of that solution. So yes, I like the concept, but I want to tell you,
endorse it. You endorse the border tax.
No. I want to tell you, it's the start of a discussion. So there's nothing to endorse because we're taking in information from all quarters, and I think that's the right way to do it. But we're not saying here's a new concept, here's a bill. We need to pass it to find out what's in it, which is what the Democrats did with Obamacare. With tax reform, we're taking our time, getting input from your viewers to make sure we get this right.
Got it.
So I like the concept of paying for a tax cut, not just lopping it off and thinking that we're not going to solve our debt problem.
And one other biggie for the business community, which is the tax deductibility of interest. Where do you stand there?
I'm for that as well, because I think that's going to help promote growth. I think that, and when you promote growth, you help businesses of all sizes hire more people, which in turn gets you more revenue at the end of the day.
All right, Congressman, thank you for your time. We appreciate it, Congressman.
Thank you, guys.
Todd
I appreciate
Rokita.
your show.